Major Facilities Elected Member Update. Item 9, Alistair Pearson, welcome to the table. Are there any comments that you'd like to highlight for us on this report?
Well, I might just whiz through the, if you don't mind, just because these were prepared in December.
Yeah,
and,
thank you.
There are some changes that may be of interest. Welcome. Canterbury Multi-Use Arena. There is a councillor briefing next Tuesday, which will be held through with Mary. So just to give you an update on everything that's occurring there in the next steps, if you will. Linwood Pool, we are still in negotiations with the supplier, but I've actually come to an agreement now. So our expectation is that there'll be a contract signed in early February, and there's a further report later in this meeting on Linwood Pool. Hornby, for multidisciplinary teams, the evaluations closed this week. There have been some post-tender clarifications, they're underway, and we again expect to appoint mid-February this, and we're still targeting the end date of Q4 2022. With regards to Lancaster Park, we held the last PSG for Lancaster Park yesterday and agreed that now we'll proceed to final account on the project. The site is now completely clear and has been sealed to stop dust from being an issue to the local public. The next steps for us are a closeout report, final account, and then bring that closeout report to the Finance Performance Committee for approval. Yep, so that sort of sorts that one out. We're now complete. Performing Arts Precinct, we've got both car park paper coming up, and so negotiations are currently underway with the supplier, and we're aiming to present that paper to council in March. And the Court Theatre development agreement is still underway, and a draft of that, once we're ready to present, will be presented to the councillors for approval. The square and the surrounds, phase 1 is complete early February. This aligns with the Spark building occupation on the 14th of February, so to be out of their way in a timely manner is what we're heading for, and future phases are in planning at the moment. Metro Sports Facility is as per the update. From our perspective, there's and for Christchurch as a whole, it's worth seeing the 500-ton crawler crane that's arrived on site. It's a 20 million investment by Titan Cranes. It's a huge piece of kit, and it's well worth, and it shows to me the vision that the local industry has to purchase something of that stature and to place it upon one of our projects. Fantastic news to see, and panel install is underway on that particular project. Just for the benefit of those in the chamber, the PCG membership from a Christchurch City Council perspective, so the control group membership is Craig Hutchins and Stuart Graham. And from a PSG membership, we've got Nigel Cox and Bruce Rendell. So from a steering group representatives, and from my unit, we have Mark Noonan as the project director, and he sits across both PCG and PSG, so he understands what's going on across the project from a financial perspective and delivery perspective. Old Municipal Chamber, this has been an ongoing and long process for us. 2019 Q4, we negotiated and signed off a heads of agreement with a supplier. In this year, we're now working with that supplier to confirm the extent of the scope and spec. We expect to be presenting reports to the F&P committee over that period of time. On agreement with this committee, we will proceed to the establishment of a trust. Our supplier expects to have a final design and a detailed scope of the work that they will be doing for CCC approval in Q3 2020, and we expect to be in an agreement with that supplier for lease and development of that site Q4 this year, with an expectation of approximately 15 to 18 months of build time for that particular supplier. So again, establishing a Q2 2022 completion on the OMC if all goes well. That's my report. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Just focusing on the Lancaster Park, and I've got some wording that we're putting together, which we might be able to put up on the screen, shall we, so that everybody's able to have a look at that. Okay, so obviously the Lancaster Park deconstruction and demolition project is coming to an end.
complete.
You're bringing a closeout report to us, and I've asked for that report to be brought as soon as possible. I mean, ideally, I'd love it to come to the March meeting, but I realise there's some work to do to put the report together. It may be that we can't achieve March, but it would be good if we could get it as soon as possible. If we can't achieve March, then maybe the month after, if that's possible. And one of the reasons I'm so keen to get the closeout report so quickly is because that gives us the opportunity to find out what the final budget position is on this project. Obviously, we've got a future project, the redevelopment of the site, which is referred to on the penultimate bullet point in your update here. And what we've got here is a provision that notes that the closeout report will be coming. And then sets out an expectation, essentially, that if there are any unused funds from this demolition project, they will be able to be applied to the future redevelopment of the site, which is the separate project which is referred to in your penultimate bullet point, which I understand will then report to the appropriate committee, the committee that Sarah chairs. So, yeah, if I can just make sure that we get that closeout report as soon as it is able to be put together, realising there's some work to do to make that happen, and we'll put this resolution today that really just acknowledges that if there are funds that can be, if there are surplus funds from this project, our expectation is that we'd look at applying those funds to the future redevelopment of the site.
Yeah, there are surplus funds.
Excellent. Yeah. We'll look forward to the closeout report that details that. Thank you. Okay, Jake.
This may or may not be a question for you. So the investment case for the stadium was supposed to be signed off pre-Christmas. Do we know where that's got to or why that's been held up at Cabinet?
I was going to say there is a briefing next week on Tuesday, that will cover that particular next steps. Yep.
Yes, please.
Yep. So, Chief Executive, have you got some comments here?
So, Councillor, you will recall that what the decision was delegated by the Cabinet, and that the actual funding agreement would have to be finalised, and that the date for that is no later than the 2nd of March. But we will then flow that through in terms of the briefing next week, but I expect us to outperform that date.
Thank you. Yanni.
Yeah. To inform the draft annual plan. So I just wanted to check that's still happening.
Yep, I believe that'll be, Andrew will be carrying out that report, Andrew Rutledge from Parks.
Right, okay. So we don't know.
So our role is to demolish the building and leave the site in readiness for a future use decision. There's a concept plan that's been approved by Community Board and Council, which has been approved. So the next steps are to be defined by Andrew and brought to this meeting, which will come on the back of the closeout report and the available funds that are there and available.
Which in turn will then lead to an annual plan decision.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, actually, so the resolution from Council is quite clear that request staff to report back to Council on the Lancaster Park spatial plan development in time for the plan to be considered in the 2021 draft annual plan. So, and then the advice was 2021. The report is being prepared for the February council meeting. So I'm operating on the assumption that that's still happening. And there's nothing.
I'd say that it is. We had the PSG yesterday, and Andrew was all over this. So.
Great, cool.
Thank you.
Fantastic, thanks.
And the important thing will be to pull all of this work together. We've got that report, we've got the resolution in front of us today, and we've got draft annual plan and annual plan considerations. We need to make sure that the whole lot comes together as one work stream.
Yeah.
I don't consider that our only issue with creating and supplying a closeout report is basically the final account with the contractor. And
Well, you won't get that by February.
And Lee Butcher is already working hard to close that door quite quickly because he knows there's pressure to get the closeout report as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So we alerted him to that yesterday. So.
No, that's fine. We're on the same page.
Yeah.
Just good.
The other question I had was the old municipal chambers. So I'm just trying to understand what was the date when we initially agreed for that, the decision that we made previously in terms of the expectation of when that building work would start and work would be complete, and how are we tracking against that original date?
So originally we had intent was Q4 2021 is what we indicated on our elected member update. So Q4 2021, we're now looking, because of the extent of the negotiations that have been undertaken, the lack of interest from an expression of interest, and the negotiation with a current supplier, we're now looking at a period of 15 to 18 months, which is round about Q2 2022 delivery. And this is all based on council agreeing to the specification, or sorry, the scope of work that's going to be taking place and the use of that building.
Right, but so when the report, and I appreciate it when it's public excluded, so I don't know how much we can say here, but when we made that decision to go with the preferred contractor or preferred party, what was the expectation? Are you saying it was...
Wasn't defined at that time, to be quite honest, because we were still in negotiation.
Right.
We had a heads of agreement with them that they
Yeah.
would be party to this, and then we had to work through, because the work itself is, obviously the building itself is held at a certain point, and they need to review where we are at and what their repair strategy and methodology is going to be for the future. So that's where we're currently with them at the moment, discussing that, so,
Yeah, okay.
and
Thanks.
detailing that for them.
Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Aaron?
Just two quick ones, completely different. The first one's just around the swimming pool, the Metro Sport facility. Is that is it confirmed it'll have a changing spaces facility in the design?
I'll have to ask that question. I don't know the answer to that straight away.
Okay, and then the other one is just around our information sharing with the public. I noted on some of the sites, I haven't checked them all, but the ones I've walked past recently, there's no on-site signage that I'm aware of. So you go to the Performing Arts Precinct and it's just gravel, and people are in town, they're walking around, they're wondering what's happening. Just even glossy versions of these on corflutes on signboards would be helpful. And also it was raised with some people that were here from Sydney last week that I possibly related to, said all projects that they see over there always has the price on them. And when you're in Australia, they're quite proud of how much they're investing into projects, and it shows when the public are putting money in, and actually Australians put it on private projects as well. Oh, we're building a 40-storey building, it's costing this much, and everyone gets excited. But it would be quite good to have that information there for the public. Is that a consideration?
It can be, yeah, it can be considered, yeah, without doubt. It's whether you want to advertise the fact that what each of the buildings cost to.
Well, just the public information, but you know,
We do already provide that information through the elected member updates, etc. So which is public.
which that 0.003% of the population that read it, all the rest of them are missing out. And if they're walking through town, they go, "Oh wow, they're going to do that."
Yeah,
It's
it's
excellent. We might hear from more people during the annual plan.
We could probably look at doing something on one of the future projects and drafting something that we could establish as a board on the outside of the structure. That'd be worth doing.
I think it would be good if that could occur. I think it's a really good suggestion. I mean, given that the information exists in a public form which is easily understood, if we can use that information on site to do exactly what Aaron has suggested, I think, you know, certainly is worthy of consideration. I think that's a good idea. And if there's any change to the way the information's provided or to the content for that purpose, then that's obviously something that we consider. But if we can ask you to pick that up, that would be great.
Yeah, we can do that.
Thank you. Anne?
Further to that, Alistair, I think these reports are really useful and easy to understand, and I think that's always a challenge for us to get information out. So following from what Aaron was saying, I think it's a perfect vehicle through which to get some really good information out there.
Okay.
So thanks.
Do that.
Thank you. Sarah?
Thank you. I think it's a great idea to put information up on sites and a range of sites, not just the major ones, but you know, cycleways, you know, the Apala Library, a whole pile of, you know, we did get some up for Apala, but that was really good. But the thing is, the things like costs and timeframes change over time, and if you just have a sign, you don't want to have to change and doing your plastic all the time. So maybe having a link through to the relevant page on the council website with the project information for that kind of thing, because there's also a difference between what's budgeted and then what ends up being a contract cost and any variations that council has approved over time. So just, you know, maybe a link to the relevant page there.
I hate to say it, when I worked for another organisation, which is across the road there, that organisation, we we suggested that we use QR codes
Yeah,
so that people just get the app, go to
Yeah.
QR code, and essentially it gives you the information.
sends
so
you to the
can
right
read all
page.
about
But
it.
yeah, having information I think is a really good idea, just saying this is what's coming here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely worth doing.
Yeah.
Yep,
And
thank you.
being digital, we can do it quicker and faster, and we can update it. So.
All right, thank you. Sam?
Thanks, Alistair. Just following on from Jake's point about the multi-use arena, is there any risk to the delay in the announcement of the crowdfunding?
No, there's a
So it won't slow the project down?
No,
at all?
I know you're going to get a briefing, but to be quite honest, there are streams of work underway right now, so I know it's progressing. So, yes.
Thank you. Okay, so we've got these resolutions in front of us, including the additional paragraph 2, which we talked about earlier. Can I get a mover for these resolutions? Sarah, and a seconder, Pauline. All those in favour say aye. Against?